Fancy, the record button countdown.
Yeah.
Hi, folks. Welcome to our podcast.
Yeti
Walks into base camp.
I am Yeti Legs.
She forgot the other half of the name.
Oh, talking
through
hiking. I always forget it. It's just habit.
Yeah, we are your host. I am Yeti Legs.
And I am Base Camp.
We are a married couple that does through hiking, ultra running. We have a husky. Her name is Loba. And what have we done? We've done the PCT, the Tour de Mont Blanc. Blanc. I did the Colorado Trail, and we did the Arizona Trail December of last year, January of this year.
And we are hoping to do the Colorado Trail together this October, which will be super exciting. And then finish up the AZT. So it'll be a fun little trip for us.
Yeah, I think it will be.
Yeah, we'll take Loba with us this time on the Colorado Trail, and not the AZT. There's too many cacti out there. She'd die.
She would flip a lid, y'all. We took her on one little short hike here in Colorado that had a few cacti on the trail.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, she would step on a snow pile that was covering a whole bunch of cacti. So she got one little needle in her paw, and she was
lost it.
Drama queen. I had to carry her for miles back to the car. It was hilarious.
So no taking her back on the AZT.
Yeah.
But you guys, we're super excited about this episode. If I sound a little tired, it's because it's morning.
We're recording at 9 a.m. But the lovely human that we are interviewing today is, what time is it there?
It's 4:00 in the afternoon.
4:00 in the afternoon. How lovely. That's our normal recording time.
Yes. So we're very excited, and we would absolutely make this change in our time schedule to interview this person. Do you want to introduce who this is?
Yes. We have Keith Fozzie Foskett. He is a thru hiker / book author / all around wonderful human. Before we ever hiked our first thru hike, which is the PCT, of course, we listened to his first, not his first book, but I would say his flagship book, the one he's best known for, at least in our opinion, called The Last Englishman, which covers his trek of the Pacific Crest Trail. Listened to that one a few good times, right?
Yeah. And it was amazing. Such a captivating book the entire time. And so, Fozzie, we're very excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Marie, I'm very excited to be here. I would say thank you for asking me, but I think I asked you, didn't I?
No, I think we asked you, but you reached out to us because of the podcast.
Okay.
We totally fanboyed you guys so we were interviewing Alice from Far Out.
That's correct.
And Fozzie reaches out to us. Was it on Facebook Messenger? Where was it?
I think it was Facebook Messenger.
I think it could have been, yeah.
And we freaked out. We were like, holy shit, Fozzie is messaging us. What happened here? This is amazing. This is like
I think you built me up far more than's necessary, but thank you very much anyway. And I'm thoroughly chuffed you enjoyed the book. It was, I think out of all of them, that was probably the favourite. It was certainly the easiest one, shall we say, to write. It just kind of flowed. So I'm chuffed you enjoyed it. It's always good to hear.
Oh yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, you had such an incredible experience on the PCT too, and being the last Englishman out there, which is the title of your book. I mean, it's just captivating even to the end. You're like, is he gonna make it? What's gonna happen?
And I still say that was by a long way the best summer of my entire life. The Appalachian Trail comes a very close second, but nothing will ever surpass the PCT. That was a monumental few months. It was amazing.
Yeah. I will say I was really looking forward to hearing your actual voice because all of your audiobooks are narrated by someone else.
They are.
And I feel like the accent's a little bit thicker on the narrator, to be honest with you. So, no, it's nice to see your face and hear your voice.
And you too. I was told to do the audiobooks myself, but as I learned over the course of a few years with books in terms of editing and cover designs and everything that goes along with it, don't do it yourself, except write it, obviously. If you're going to do something associated with it, particularly narration, give it to someone that knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
It's true.
You're actually not the first person that said that either.
Yeah.
We interviewed Glenn Van Pesky. He's the founder of Gossamer Gear, I'm sure you know. And he wrote a book, and he did not narrate it either.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, we have so this is kind of like a hybrid episode. We're going to talk a little bit about your book/books, plural. And then we want to just ask you some questions about things that you've dealt with in your hiking career, and even a haunting experience that you mentioned on your PCT,
which we have mentioned in our other stories before.
We
just recently mentioned it, actually, because we went into NorCal in our stories on the PCT in the podcast. So this is kind of good timing.
It's perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're just so excited to have you, Fozzie. Like it's truly wild. You guys, what a privilege to have him on the podcast. He is like a thru hiker king, I would say. Like he's done so much, and he has so much wealth and knowledge in the thru hiking world and experience, and so to get to have him on the podcast is a treat.
We obviously hold you to a very high standard, so don't let us down, okay?
I do my best. I'm getting more worried the further we get into this.
No.
I do my best. Yeah.
You heard us when we were interviewing Allison. She mentioned your name. We were like, oh, you know Fozzie? So clearly, we think highly of you. I don't think that will change. Do you want to do a drink of the choice? Since it's 9:00. Or 4:00 your time.
We could do a drink of the choice just for posterity. We're drinking coffee and water over here, so nothing fancy. Are you having a beer over there at 4 p.m. in the afternoon?
No, I don't. I don't generally drink beer, but in the afternoon I should, I suppose, be having a wine or something. But I too have a glass of water and a coffee as well. In what you'll probably recognise is
a Denny's coffee mug.
Oh my God. Denny's coffee mug?
A Denny's coffee mug.
Did you take it?
It has an interesting story behind it. But in it is black coffee, a little bit of sweetener, and some cardamom, of all things. You ever had cardamom?
Okay.
Okay. I'm sure it tastes lovely.
Middle Eastern thing, but
yeah.
Wait, what is the story behind Denny's mug?
The Denny's mug. So I was touring around the States in a beat-up Honda Civic in 1995. I went over there to travel, and I just kind of drove around a lot of places. And I met this wonderful woman called Vicky, and we travelled around for a good 2 or 3 weeks, and then I came back to the UK. And before I left, we used to hang out in Denny's. I just kind of liked the food, and we just used to sit in there and eat and drink coffee, that sort of thing. And when I left, I asked the waitress if I could have a Denny's mug, which she gladly gave me. So I had that. That was 1995, and I was so careful with that mug because I didn't want to smash it. So like when I was wiping it up from drying, I used to do it over the kitchen counter. So if I dropped it, it wouldn't fall on the floor; it would just fall on the counter. But there was this one day about 4 years later, so this was 99, and I dropped it and it smashed on the floor, and I was mortified. It was, it kind of held deep memories for me. So it smashed on the kitchen floor, and I'm kind of looking at it forlornly. And here's the weird thing: about an hour later, and this is the truth. People think I'm making this up, but it's the truth. About an hour later, the doorbell went, and it was I was going to say the postman. You'd know better as the mailman. And he had a few letters. He had a cardboard box. So I put the letters to one side and I opened the box, and I opened it, and there was a Denny's mug. This is the same morning that I smashed mine. There was a Denny's mug, and there was a note from Vicky, the girl that I was hanging out with in the States, and it just simply said, "Just in case you break the one you have."
What?
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the word kismet, and that was a kismet moment there. That was meant to happen.
That's so cool.
That was crazy.
That is a cool story.
Oh my God! The only story we have about Denny's was actually from the PCT
in Bishop.
We had just climbed out over Bishop Pass to get back into the town of Bishop, California.
It was a bad climb.
It was a blood moon. There was a black bear that crossed the road on the drive back. And then we get to town, and the Denny's closed their doors at 10 o'clock. 10
o'clock. It was 10:01.
Can you believe it? I'm like, aren't you supposed to be
we
like
were so hungry.
24 hours.
It was so painful. We were like, what do we do now?
I didn't even know there was a Denny's in Bishop. Perhaps there wasn't back when I did it because it was 2010. So,
yeah.
Well, as far as we're concerned, there is no Denny's there. They've let us down.
They did.
Damn.
Yeah. I know. What did we end up doing that night? Did
we got
gas
a hotel.
station?
We got a hotel, and did we get Taco Bell or did we get gas station?
Gas station food.
I don't remember.
It's terrible when you're like, because is when you're through hiking, all you think about, or one of the biggest things you think about, is food, and you build things up, don't you? Like when I get to town, I'm going to do this, I'm going to eat that, and I'm going to eat that, and when you get there and your dream's shattered, it's you can't get between a through hiker and his food.
I was dreaming about pancakes.
Yeah, we were devastated.
Pancakes just seem to do it for some reason.
Pancakes and bacon and eggs.
Yeah.
Didn't you say that
breakfast
was your favorite
right?
meal in America or in the States?
Yeah, but we do a fairly good breakfast over here, but it's nothing compared to what you guys have over there. The one big thing I miss about here, we have hash browns, but over here we get these kind of little frozen triangular things, which you just kind of put in the oven or whatever. But I've never ever been to a cafe over here that has, a pile of shredded potatoes, which has been put on the griddle. And it's just, if you're going to have hash browns, that's how you need to do it. And you just can't get those over here. We've got
another friend that we met on the PCT. His name is Kappa. He's also from England.
From the UK.
What part?
He's sorry, Kappa.
Is it Sussex?
I think it's closer to the Manchester area.
Might be. I think you're right. But anyways,
he's closer to London. I think he's closer to London.
We're not doing
him justice. Anyway, sorry, Kappa. I should ask him.
But he does rave about the breakfast over here as well. I'm like, this is a thing, which is funny because whenever we go to the UK or anywhere in Europe, we rave about the breakfast whenever we go there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You can't beat American breakfast. I'll give you that.
We have some questions here, but we want this to be, I guess, more of an informal conversation. And the questions are just here to guide the conversation.
We're just hanging out, you guys.
We're just hanging out.
We're just getting to know Fozzie for us, just selfishly.
And before we get into the questions, I should also let all of you know that whenever we were on the PCT, there's like this spot in the Mojave slopes area in the wind farm. Whenever you're going through the Tehachapi wind farm, there's like a little shelter with a water cache, and there's a whiteboard out there, and people had like signed their names on the whiteboard and written little quotes. And there was some quote written on the whiteboard, like half erased, probably half hit by like sweaty knees. And I could have sworn it said that it was written by Fozzie. And so whenever Fozzie actually reached out, I was like, hey, did you write this quote? And he was like, well, it would have had to have been a long time ago. But I was like, I swear this is you.
It just felt like you, Fozzie, because it was just this poetic quote or something.
I was like, that's some shit Fozzie would say right there.
No, I'm sorry to let you down on that one, but as you mentioned, I'm sure a whiteboard with something unwritten on it would have done well to survive 15 years, especially in the California sun. But
oh yeah,
that's
sorry to
true.
let you down on that.
That's true.
No worries.
We were very happy. We were very excited about it.
So we've been talking about the PCT and how you wrote a book called The Last Englishman, which covered your journey on that trail. Real quick, this is kind of the first question that we like to ask folks is, what does your backpacking / thru-hiking experience look like? Like, what have you done?
I've had to write this down. I mean, obviously you know them all, but I've got this in the order that I've done them. First one was the South Downs Way, which is a local trail in the UK. In fact, I've done that several times since. It's about 100 miles long. The North Downs Way, it's about 140 miles. The Ridgeway, that's about 90 miles. So they're all kind of like little ones when I was younger. My first big one was in Spain, which was the Camino de Santiago, but I kind of did an extended version of it, so it's about 1,000 miles long. I've done that another 2 times since. I've done that 3 times. The the PCT, the Appalachian, about 550 miles of the CDT. Why I only did 550 miles, we may come on to. The Cape Wrath Trail, which has got the motto of the hardest trail in the UK. It's about 100 miles. It goes through Scotland, and having done it, I fully agree with the motto. It was incredibly difficult. The West Highland Way, which you might have heard of.
Yeah.
Both of those two form part of a 600 miler, which went from the the west coast of Scotland over to the east side. Apart from that, as usual with any hikers, a lot of kind of local trails and footpaths around where I live, and if I totted up the mileage of those, it would probably be a few thousand miles in its own right, I expect, but that's the lot.
That's the track record right there.
It really is. Man, what's been do you have a favorite hike that you've done out of all of them?
In terms of a long one, I'd say the PCT. I guess my favourite one in the UK is probably the South Downs Way, but that's purely just because I grew up in the vicinity of it when I was younger. So they were, if I wanted to gain any sort of height when I was walking and get some views, the South Downs Way was the nearest one. And the yearly tradition, which hasn't happened every year, but the yearly tradition is normally go out at some point in the spring and hike it every year. I haven't done it every year, but I was trying to remember how many times, and I think I've done it about 13 times or something like that.
Wow.
And I'm due to go out next year. It's I just never get bored of it. It's gorgeous.
I love it.
What area is it in?
It's southeast, so it's kind of south of London. No, okay. Cotswolds is further north. It's if you can imagine, if your geography is any good, between London and the south coast of England, it starts in an old city called Winchester, which has got history that goes back a long, long way, and it follows a range of chalk hills and comes down in a city called Eastbourne, about 100 miles away. And you kind of angle towards the coast the further you walk along it. So at some point and just over halfway, you can just see the sea in the distance, and you both kind of converge. So it gets closer and closer every day. It's not like a huge chain of mountains or anything. I think the highest the South Downs Way gets is probably 1,500 feet, if that. But when you're on the top of it, it's just fantastic. It's a lovely place. It's just quintessential English countryside, as you could probably imagine.
Thank you for speaking in feet and not meters. I appreciate that.
I had to pause.
I got to spend some time in the UK. My ancestry is from there. Bosworth is like a full direct line. So Market Bosworth, that whole area. And so I did like a zigzag across UK and spent some time in London, and then spent some time Cotswold, Market Bosworth, Birmingham, and then went up to Manchester. And it was so fun. Like I just gallivanted around, like no schedule, just exploring my ancestry, which was really cool. But UK is gorgeous.
Gallivanting's a great word. But how sort of far do you have to go back to? Is this you say your ancestry? Is that like a recent thing, like your mum and your dad, or does it go back further than that?
No, it was my way back when, King Richard I'm bad at this. Sorry, Battle of Bosworth.
Let's just say it's a few centuries.
So
a few centuries.
The Battle of the Bosworth. So that was, or the battle that was a whole. My family lineage was a big part of that, and so it was really cool to get to study and see they helped start Market Bosworth and that whole area, the manor, the Bosworth Manor. That's so my grandfather's name is Bosworth. So my mom's maiden name is Bosworth. So they tracked it all the way back Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's cool, but yeah.
It is crazy, the whole ancestry thing. Since I guess with tech and websites and all the research, and it's getting bigger all the time. I've not done mine yet, but once in a while, a friend, it pops up in conversation, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm doing the ancestry thing, and it's fantastic." And I think I have a cousin in Wales who's gone back to something like the 1700s, and apparently we were leather workers, I think. So we kind of made leather shoes and I guess bags and anything that could be made out of leather. But I think it was somewhere up near Birmingham. And then for whatever reasons, most of them moved to Tottenham in North London. But he also said there's gravestones in a village or in a cemetery in a village outside Birmingham with Foskett names on the headstones. I've not been up to look at it yet, but that was like 1700s, I think, something like that. It's fascinating.
That's crazy.
That's cool. It's crazy when you see your ancestors' graves. It's like, wow, these are people I came from. It's just nuts.
You saw yours as well, presumably?
Yeah, the Bosworth name on the grave sites. It was wild.
It just makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's surreal. It's like, who met
Surreal's
here?
the word I'm looking for, yeah.
Yeah. It's magical. It felt very, very like I was time jumping almost when I was there. Like I could sense my ancestors and the energy and the people, and I don't know, it was cool. Yeah.
You're giving me goosebumps.
Well, my last name is Black. I'll just give you one guess at what our trade skill was.
A blacksmith.
A blacksmith, yeah. You've also been to the pub where Tolkien
and Lewis. I got to go to Oxford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Tolkien fan and Lewis fan, and it was really cool to go to the Eagle and Child pub in Oxford and kind of see there. And then I went to Lewis's house, actually. No one was there. It was so weird. I was like, no one cares.
The lesser known of the two.
Yeah, it was surreal.
I've driven through Oxford. I've not stopped in there. It's one of the places I'd like to visit because it just looks absolutely gorgeous. But I've only driven through it, not stopped, unfortunately. But it's a lovely part of the UK. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. But anyway, see, rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole.
the ancestors of UK.
Yeah. She asked about your favorite trail. You said the PCT. I'm just curious why the PCT was your favorite of all the long trails that you've done.
It was a throw up between the PCT and the AT, and the AT would be a favourite for other reasons. But I always say if you kind of pinned me down and forced it out of me, I'd probably say the PCT. So 2010, which was a good 9 years after I first did the Camino, which I thought would get this thru-hiking thing out of my system, and it didn't. I decided I needed to do another one.
Can't get rid of it.
I mean, there's some fantastic. At the time, 2009, there was a lot of hiking trails in Europe, but they weren't kind of. Not many people had done them. There's some absolute whoppers. There's some huge hikes in Europe, but all I'd read about in my thru-hiking research were the three big ones in the States: the AT, the PCT, and the CDT. The CDT I just decided was too much of a huge undertaking. The PCT I wanted to do, but I was still relatively inexperienced. So I looked at the AT, which is kind of where most people cut their teeth if they want to do a long distance hike. If you've done the AT, then you kind of gain a bit of respect if that's the right phrase. And then I just read about the amount of possible rain on the AT, which kind of put me off, and started looking at the PCT more, which generally people kind of do second. So strangely enough, weather was a big part of it, and it didn't disappoint me. So from I think up the first 4 months was just wall-to-wall sunshine, which as you both know, the weather does play a huge part when you're outdoors. We have to deal with the rain and the elements, but if you've had, you hear stories about people doing two weeks of solid rain on the Appalachian Trail, and in the end it'll beat even the strongest person down. So the weather was, this fantastic weather was kind of the backdrop. which made the PCT the favourite. Apart from that, I was super excited because it was my big long one, so I was excited anyway. And the terrain, the geography, so you've got 700 miles of just really super hot, dry desert hiking, which I'd never done before. So that was a learning curve. And then you go up into the Sierras, which, if anybody's done the PCT, you don't need me to explain how amazing that place is. And then you kind of get into Oregon and all these gorgeous forests, and you start glimpsing these volcanoes, which, you're standing on top of a mountain somewhere and you look out over the horizon and there's just Shasta sitting there in all its glory. And you look at it and you think, is that actually real, what I'm looking at? And then you kind of come down into Washington and the forests up there as well. So it was a lot of reasons, but the PCT is just, if I could do one again, it would be the PCT. It was just such an amazing summer, best summer ever.
So many people say that the PCT is their favorite. Like even the ones who have triple crowned, say that. And it is such a dynamic trail. You have so much terrain and highs and lows, but I feel like even the greatest lows on that trail you're rewarded by so much beauty and so much just incredible vistas that it feels like the payoff in the PCT is worth it.
Yeah. It is definitely worth it. It's it was such a beautiful trail. The AT had, I mentioned reasons for, possibly choosing the AT as well, but that's more, the big thing about the AT is it's much more of a social hike, and I enjoyed that as well immensely for an entire summer, and that's for different reasons, mainly the social stuff. You meet a lot more people, and I'm kind of quite a solo hiker, so I go out and did all these hikes on my own. A lot of people go out there with a friend or their partner or whatever, and I always went out alone and thinking that, you'd meet people when you do these hikes. And I think a lot of people do worry about them alone, but I think I'm going down a rabbit hole here. I think to go out there solo and meet people, for me, was the way to do it. If I went out there with a friend from the UK or a partner at the time or whatever, I think it can strain even the closest of bonds and the closest of relationships when suddenly you're spending 24 hours a day in somebody's company for 4 or 5 months. And to me, that was kind of like a little bit of risk. And I enjoy time on my own anyway, which is another reason why I used to do all these long hikes. So I could just spend time on my own, but equally, I loved meeting the people I did on the AT. And in the end, I think for probably half of it, I walked with 4 or 5 guys every single day. We split up along the way and did our own thing each day, but we always met up every day. We always camped every day. So the AT was definitely special as well. And the Camino was special as well. But, like I said, if you had to pin me down...
Consider yourself pinned. No, thanks for explaining that. And I think we would probably agree with all the trails we've done. The PCT was the most special. It was also our first. Your Virgin Voyage is always special.
Yeah. The Arizona Trail, I think, was a huge awakening because a lot of people talked about how much they loved that one. And so I think we were really looking forward to it. But I think I'm learning I'm not a desert person. I can do the desert. I can appreciate the desert, but it's like if the entire trail is desert and there's no other shift to look forward to, then I feel this like I'm stuck and I can't get out of this hole I'm in. Like I feel like I can't breathe. It was weird, but on the AZT I was like, I feel like I'm trapped. Like I feel like I can't get out of this trail or something. Like it was weird. It was like I was in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from.
It probably would have been different too if we had hiked it in the spring, whenever the cacti and other,
that's probably true.
Desert flora is starting to bloom. We had frozen water sources, and we just had
it was very cold,
angry, aggressive cacti with like no beautiful, flowering. So
and we had it to compare to the PCT where it's like it was just so different, I think, in that sense of, it's when you compare hikes, I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be like the PCT, and I've learned no hike is the same.
Yeah. However,
what was different from the Arizona Trail to the PCT desert then? Was the Arizona one just more brutal, or?
Yeah.
More brutal, and we were the only ones out there. We were by ourselves. There was no community other than the town stops.
We did it in winter, in December and January. And I think looking back, the community aspect and also having to do like 40-mile water carries and having to ration our water a lot. It was just a mental bender is what it was.
It's not the first time I've heard you get someone that's done one of the big trails and met all the people and experienced the community and all that sort of thing. And then, they've got the bug, so they decide some of the time just to do another hike at the beginning or the tail end of winter. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time they don't like it for the same reason, and they always cite the fact that I'm on my own. I thought I could deal with it, and there's no one out here. There's no trail magic. There's you almost like you walk in town and nobody's coming up and say, "Hey, you a PCT hiker? That's fantastic." And and they say it's a completely different story. But you've done the Tour de Mont Blanc as well, haven't you?
We did that one in the off season
we
as
did
well.
In October. Yeah. And it was mind-blowing, amazing.
That
was
one
it really? I was thinking about thinking about doing it this year, but I've got a friend that done it a couple of years ago, and it looks fantastic.
It is.
It's the rewards for your climbs is just another world. Like, it's otherworldly type of views that you're seeing. It's like you're looking at Lord of the Rings every day is what it feels like, and you're just camping in these gorgeous just spots that you're like, where am I?
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful, and it's peaceful. And we did it when no one was out there. And I think 8 days, we just took our time, and 8 days was great to just have isolation and beauty together. Mm-hmm. So we really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And all the refuges and the hostels were closed. Some of them do have winter rooms. And we definitely took advantage of the ones that were accommodating, but, I guess camping is frowned upon on the Tour de Mont Blanc, but you do what you do. We reached out to a couple of different groups on Facebook asking, what are the conditions in late October? Should we do it? Should we not? And we got a lot of folks saying no. And then we had one guy who lives in Chamonix. He private messaged me, and he's like, the weather is fantastic. You've got a lovely window of no rain before the winter storms start to roll in. And I think you'll be just fine, especially because you live in Colorado. You've done all these other hikes. And we listened to that one guy as opposed to the masses, all the naysayers, the fear-mongering. And we went out there, and we had a lovely time. It was wonderful.
Was it when you said you got a fantastic weather window, was he talking about that particular time of year in general, or the time when you were due to go out there?
So the time that we were due to go out there. So we were planning to do it late October and then continue like a trip beyond finishing the TMB. And we did. And it just so happened that the particular time we were there flying into France to start the trail, he's like, oh, you've got a window of about 7 to 10 days, depending on how the weather holds up. I was like, wow, that was meant to be right there.
What a bummer.
And, yeah. And sure enough, the first day that we started the trail and into the second day, huge downpour. But the rest of the trip, it was beautiful weather. And then the very day that we finished, the clouds rolled in that day. So I'm like, wow, yeah, that was our window.
Meant to be.
Yeah, it was meant to be. You mentioned people hiking for some 2 straight weeks in rain on the Appalachian Trail. And like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know if my resolve could hold up to that. I would just post up in a town for a while. The rain's hard.
I have a friend that calls he refers to the rain as being belligerent. He said a day is fine, but if you get it day on day, he just calls it belligerent and says it'll just break you down. And I think obviously everybody's got their cut-off point with hardship, and some people persevere through. I was extraordinarily lucky on the PCT, and when I say people to this that some of them feel gobsmacked, but I think on the entire PCT, I think I had about 5 days of rain on the entire thing, So I was absolutely blessed, and I was expecting, the good fortune to break at any point, but it never did. So, and you do hear some horror stories about it, but
I think we had about 5 days of rain just in the Trinity Alps whenever we did it.
Did you?
Yeah, and it was cold rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not fun, but we got through it.
We did. I definitely want to get into your books here in a second and talk about what those books and the trails that correspond to them are like. But I will say, last thing on trails real quick, the Colorado Trail. If you're ever back in the States looking to do a trail, it's kind of like a longer version of the TMB, like mile for mile. You just keep getting hit with these epic views and vistas. And yeah, the climbs are hard, but the payoffs are worth it.
Yeah, everyone we've ever asked that has done all the trails or Triple Crown, they say the Colorado Trail, mile for mile, is the most rewarding.
Yeah,
I've not heard anything. I mean, I don't hear anything bad about any of the trails over there or the long stuff, but you do hear such great reports from the CDT. Nobody's ever disappointed with that one.
Yeah. Well, if you ever do the Colorado Trail, we'd love to put you up for a couple nights.
You be sure of it. I'll definitely take you up on that.
We'll get you some hash browns.
Yeah, we'll make you some hash browns.
Yeah.
Wait, are you thinking about finishing the CDT then? Is that still is it in the roster?
I ebb and flow with it, to be honest. So a few years ago, I pretty much decided to stop through hiking. It was like a sort of psychological thing. I felt it was like a long period in my life of about 20 years where I absolutely lived for it.
Yeah.
And I did. And I got to the point, so I tried to do the CTT in 2015, and it was about 3 years after that. I went out to Spain to do one of the Camino branches, and I came home after about 2 weeks of a 5-week trip. And I had this dawning realization that I wasn't particularly enjoying it anymore, and I'd battled it for several years. And I was comfortable with it. In fact, flying back home from Spain, I was smiling about it because it was such a weight off, because I battled it for so long. It's like, you should be through hiking because this is what you love doing, and falling out of love with something that you've done for so many years is, I guess the word to use is upsetting. It just doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of like what happened. It wasn't ticking the boxes anymore, and it wasn't really making me fire on all cylinders. So to go back and do the CDT is not really ticking all the boxes again, shall we say. I haven't quite got the passion yet. I do think about it, and if I had the time and I had the money, that would obviously be huge motivators. And it is unfinished business, and it would make a hell of a book as well. So I never say never. Perhaps I think the older you get, the more, things become more pressing. So all the things you've been mulling over for several years that you'd like to do and have never done suddenly take on more importance, because I guess you realise you're not immortal, and if you want to do these things, you need to go out and do them. So I never say never. Never say never.
So this is like the perfect opportunity to discuss this. You got about 500 miles into the CDT. You're still in New Mexico at that point. Yeah. And you hopped off because you had a health scare, what you thought was a health scare. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
I was... I camped on my own. I had met a lot of people. Some people... In fact, I was walking with a guy who I did part of the PCT with, and I met a few other people. I think it was about mile 550 or something like that. And I'm trying to remember the town I just came from, and I can't remember, but it was about 50 miles back, and the next town was about another 90. And right in the middle of the New Mexican desert, it doesn't get much more remote. And I remember I got up in the morning, I felt fine, and I was leaving camp, and I was walking for about an hour and my chest started hurting, and I kind of dismissed it. When you're warming up in the morning, and something always hurts, or the muscles are settling down, and I just figured it was the body ironing out, sore muscles and that sort of thing. And it slowly got worse to the point where I couldn't breathe well. So I kind of had this breath window of I could only breathe in a little bit and I could only breathe out a little bit. So I was kind of going like this. I couldn't take big breaths of air. And having thought logically it was a lung thing, for some reason I just thought it was a heart thing, because I also had this pain kind of over where my heart was. So I sat down, and at this point I was kind of really struggling to get breath, and I'm like, what the hell do I do? And I looked at my phone, I had no signal. And literally 10 minutes later, a guy called Hojo, who was the guy that I was walking on and off with, who I'd walked on the PCT, came down. He took one look at me, and I think his words are something like, "You look shit, are you all right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he asked me a load of questions. Now, Hojo, I'm not sure of the exact word, but he was a medic. He worked up in the ski areas during the ski season, so he's kind of a paramedic. He took my pulse. He asked me a load of questions, and he said, "Do you have reception?" And I'm like, "No." And at that point, he walked off down the trail, kind of holding his phone in the air, trying to get reception. And he came back and he said, "I've got through to the sheriff, and they're sending someone out." And I said, "Do you think it's necessary?" And he just looked at me. He said, "You don't mess around with chest pain." And when he said that, it kind of drove it home a bit. So we waited about 50 minutes, and then all of a sudden this chopper came over the horizon, which kind of perked me up a bit, because I thought, I'm going to get a ride in a chopper. And it was like something out of a Hollywood movie. Hojo was doing these things with his arms to, it's safe to land sort of thing, and it landed, and these two paramedics come running out with all this gear, and I'm like, this is great. And they kind of wired me all up, and they said, "Look, your heart's fine, but you're obviously not." So they put me in the back of the chopper, took me to Albuquerque A&E, and they diagnosed pneumonia. I was in there for about a day, and the doctor said, "You're not doing any more hiking for at least 4 weeks," he said. And when he said that, I'm just like, oh God. And he said, go and rest somewhere, get a motel for like 3 or 4 days, just take it easy, and then fly back home. And that's what I did. But yeah, that was the end of the CDT.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Unfinished business, as I say. But
Unfinished business, yeah.
It is.
The rest of that book, I think which book was this? Was this Balancing on Blue?
No, that was it was High and Low that I wrote about that. So High and Low was the hike across Scotland, so the Cape Wrath Trail, the West Highland Way, and then across to the east side of Scotland. But I touched on what happened on the Continental Divide at the beginning, because it led on. So I did that Scottish walk about a couple of months after I got back from the CDT.
That was kind of where you realized you were experiencing some depression as well. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So the Scottish hike was, I had about 100 miles on the Cape Wrath Trail, which some people describe as the hardest trail in the UK, and it was. Then it went into the West Highland Way, which is about 100 miles, and then I had about another 400 miles to the other side of the country. Now, I was kind of eager to do it because of my disappointment on the Continental Divide Trail, and I thought, I've got a little bit of summer left and get out there sort of thing. I was also seriously unhappy. I just assumed it was because, the CDT hadn't gone to plan, and as you know, having blocked your calendar off for 5 months and given up your job and saved all this money up, it was a huge disappointment. So I just put it down to that, and I thought, get out on the Scottish hike and, kind of find your happiness again. But I couldn't find it, and if anything, it took a really severe nosedive. I mean, I was in tears on that hike. It was, the Cape Wrath Trail didn't really, because it's so brutal and the weather I think I was out there for 30 days and it rained every single day when I was doing that hike. Not every day, but at some point every day it rained. So it was just kind of beating me down. And I just thought, for want of a better expression, I was in a bad mood. I mean, I'd heard that people had depression and have depression, but I didn't even know what it was. There's an old cliche that people that have got depression get really fed up with people saying those immortal lines, you'll just, you'll get through it, just snap out of it sort of thing, because they just think they're having a bad day. But it's not like that. It's not like that at all. And I finished the hike, but I was in a real mess. I got back home and it got worse and worse and worse until eventually I was doing something on the computer and my phone went, and it was one of my best friends, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm not good." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just not good. I'm not happy." And she asked me some questions, and she basically ordered me to go down to the doctors. She said, "It sounds like you've got depression." And I'm like, I haven't got depression. It's not that. She said, "Just go down to the doctor." So I did, and he asked me a lot of questions, and he said at the end of it, "Yeah, you've got depression. We need to talk about how to, to get you through it," that sort of thing. So it was a shocker, and it was only then that I fully started to understand it.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I don't think we've experienced it like that.
I have. When I was a younger,
well,
I had suicidal depression until I was 22, 23. But yeah, I had suicidal depression from 11 to 22. So yeah, it's a thing.
I thought, I mean, I had, when you say to people you have suicidal thoughts, which I did, they kind of look mortified. There's obviously a big difference between having suicidal thoughts and actually going out and doing it. And I think most people, thankfully, have the strength not to follow through with that. That the moment of enlightenment from me was when the doctor said it's an illness, it's a psychological illness, and that was the turning point for me, because I still just thought it was, you're down for a few days. I didn't realise that there was some illness kind of controlling your mood. That never computed to me. But when he turned around and said, "Look, it's an illness," that was kind of like it was kind of like, having something like your arm hurts and then the doctor says, "You've got an illness, you've got an infection." You're like, "Oh, okay, now I understand why it's hurting." So when they said you've basically got a psychological illness, that was when I fully understood it and thought, okay, it's an illness. There's something, I use the words loosely, something wrong with me, but there's something wrong with my, my psyche. But also I thought, if it's an illness, you can do something, not necessarily to cure illness, because as far as I understand, you can't really cure depression. You can only take steps towards alleviating the symptoms, shall we say. But that was kind of the defining moment of understanding it was an illness and not just a mood, shall we say.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say earlier, is we haven't experienced like full-on through depression post-hiking. I did want to differentiate between actual clinically diagnosed depression versus post-trail depression, which can just be a case of the blues because you're missing the trail, you're missing the constant, endorphin release from hiking and all your friends. Neither is great, neither's positive, and you have to work through both situations as best you can. But I did just want to differentiate between those two.
Sorry, I interrupted you before you finished your sentence. I was like, no, I've experienced it. But no, you're right. It's to be able to differentiate between the psyche, having an illness, and also post-trail depression, which is a thing too, that people, come off of serotonin and you're not doing 20 to 25 miles a day anymore. And you're like, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me, which it's like, your body's like, whoa, shock.
And not to say that post-trail depression can't be clinically diagnosed depression as well. Like they're not mutually exclusive, but I just wanted to drop that plug in there.
Post-trail depression, I kind of felt a little bit sad when I got back from most of the big ones, but I wouldn't say I had I didn't really get post hike depression to a big extent. It was more kind of like I'm a little bit sad, and then I tried to turn it into a positive, like, you've just had one of the best summers you've ever had, and snap out of it, you idiot. And, maybe a couple of days, and I was kind of fine. But I know it's a thing. It is a thing, and you can kind of understand it. For 6 months, I always refer to it as doing these hikes as being as close to freedom as you can ever get.
Yeah.
You've got no mail coming through the door every day. The things that normally bother you in life, you kind of leave behind, and it's for a few months. It's like living another life, and you do get as close to freedom as you think you can do. And when you do get back and you lose that, it is an eye opener. You can understand why some people can't deal with it very well. It's
definitely,
yeah.
And just continue to through hike. I mean, it's a thing. Like, you were right. It's like, I thought, okay, we're just gonna do the PCT, and then
we'll be good.
We'll buy a house. We'll have a kid, and then like we're getting into this, and the reality is like, oh my gosh, my body aches to go out and experience that freedom I had on the PCT. And, we just even the AZT was hard, and it was mentally a bender, but I still want to go back out and hike again. Like I want to go back out and not have to worry about all of these things we think about inside of the cotton world that we have to worry about with people and work and bills and just all these things. And yeah, it's such an addiction. I don't think it's a bad addiction. I think it's a good one. But
you can understand when people do a long one like the AT, and you hear a lot of people say it's on the bucket list. I just want to do that, and the way they speak, you think they're going to come back, and it's out of their system, and then they get along with normal life, and before you know it, they're planning the PCT and then the CDT, and suddenly this through hiking thing takes priority over their normal everyday life. And when you're in normal everyday life, it's kind of like, somehow I've got to get 4 months off work, somehow I've got to get several $1,000 together. And some people don't even do it because they can't do that. But once you've done it, it's then, getting a few months off work becomes the priority, and saving up a few $1,000s becomes the priority, because you're a much better person when you're standing on top of a mountain in the Sierra Nevada than you are sitting in an office doing something that you really don't want to do just to earn a few bucks.
Look, I just accepted a job offer here in Colorado with their Parks and Wildlife Department, but I'm like, just so you know, I'm going to want to take several weeks off in the fall.
They were like, we love that. Work-life balance is important. Like, he's doing a really cool job, though. He's literally going out in the field and pretty much hiking and taking a tent and a backpack for 5 days on end and observing
what an
wildlife.
Absolute chore. What a bind that's going to be.
I know, someo's got to do it.
I know.
I'll be a field biologist.
I bet they almost held you down to get you to do that job, didn't they? Sign here now.
Held me at gunpoint.
But it's funny what you're saying, because we could have bought a house probably 2 times over for the amount of money we have saved to do through hiking.
Yeah.
We haven't. We still rent.
You want to know how much money we spent on the PCT?
Oh, it was so gross.
You should tell him.
I actually don't think I know. I think it was 24,000.
About 24,000.
We platinum blazed hardcore.
We did.
I when I went out, I had a rough idea how much it would be. I didn't think I'd spend as much as I did. I mean, this was back in 2010, so it's probably even worse. But I think I did about £8,000, which at the time was about $12,500, which would sink in with, I guess.
There you go. Yeah.
What you did, but.
Well, shoot, we went to Chester and we stayed 2 nights at a Best Western and paid $600 for 2 nights.
Well, it's because of all the burn zones that we had to go through in that section.
Okay.
And I was just like so done. Like the midway point was burned to a crisp. Like it just, I was like, I need to just clean off my body. It's been 10 days since we took a shower. I was like, sure, we'll pay $600 for a hotel room so we can just take a shower.
I think most of my budget went on hash browns, but there was the hotel in there somewhere as well.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
Should we list off his books?
I was gonna say, well,
we've done 3.
I need my glasses. Okay, you've done the journey in between, the Camino de Santiago, the Last Englishman, the PCT, Balancing on Blue, the AT, Traveled Far. It's a collection of short stories, and High and Low, which is the struggles with depression in the Cape Wrath Trail, is what you experienced. That was when you came off the CDT and then did the Cape Wrath Trail. So that was that your last book?
That is the last book. That was 2018, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you feel another book in you, or do you think you're done?
I'd like to write another book. I mean, if I did, the logical choice would be the CDT, because it's kind of like, that's the trilogy, isn't it? That's the big 3 hikes, and to have a book on each would be fantastic. Whether I actually go out and do it, I don't know. But if I did, then I would probably do a book on that. Books in general, I don't know. I went through. I have tried to write other books, but I guess thru-hiking or adventure memoirs was kind of my niche. I tried to write a dystopian novel, which fell flat on its face, because I didn't know how to write it. So if you're writing novels and stuff like that, it's kind of like a movie script. The set processes, which if you follow it, it'll all tie together. And I didn't even know this. And I just couldn't get my head around it. It didn't work. I've tried to write several cycle touring memoirs, which I haven't been back to and touched. I think I've got about 5 or 6 books with literally just the first chapter in them, and that's all. And of all things, I'm driving a taxi at the moment, which in terms of a book is absolute gold dust, because the stuff that's happened to me since I've been driving a taxi, it was just, without blowing my own trumpet as an author, I think it would make a fantastic book. So maybe that one, I don't know, but I wouldn't say it's hard writing a book, but it's a big time draw. It used to take me about 6 months, because I'm not the sort of guy to sit down and bash it all out in 2 weeks. I couldn't do it. So 6 months kind of was my sweet spot. And then you've normally got about another 4 months on top of that to allow for people to design the front cover. You have to get it edited. You have to get it proofread. You have to put it out to about 30, 40, 50 different people to proofread it after it's edited in case any mistakes get through. You've got to reread it and reread it and reread it. And that all took about another 3 or 4 months. So it was about 8 or 9 months. I wouldn't say it's hard work. It's just one of those things that takes a lot of time. It's I've likened writing a book to thru-hiking. They share similarities because you've got a start line and you can't really look at the finish line because it's so far away that it's just, you can't really entertain it. So each day you nibble each bits off, and gradually, slowly and surely you kind of get to the end and you think, it's a good feeling. You think, I'm a thru-hiker, I just did the PCT, or I've just written a book. They're both doable, but certainly not easy. So never say never. There could be another book.
Memoirs of a taxi driver.
Yeah.
I would
honestly, some of the things I couldn't even bring them up. I couldn't even. I could write them in the book, but I don't know if I could tell them on air. But yeah, stories, crikey.
Have you ever had anyone initiate sexual intercourse?
That's what I was going to say.
I wasn't going to bring this up, so you've lit the candle. You've lit the candle. Okay, so when I first started doing it as kind of my grounding as a taxi driver, I was doing Uber. Which for other reasons I won't go into, I never want to do again. I do a lot more private work now and work for other companies, but we call it the school run over here. Do you call it the school run over there, where the parents take their kids to school? We call it the school run. So between kind of 7:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, there's twice as much traffic on the road because the parents are taking their kids to school.
Okay. We just call that traffic.
We don't actually have a definitive name for it.
We don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I get this thing through on the Uber app. And first of all, there's a little bit on the Uber app where you get your job details come through and it says multiple stops, which normally means you're picking one person up, going to another address, picking someone else up, and then taking them to another location. But during the hours of 7:30 and 9 in the morning, to me, that's a school run, because it normally means pick someone up, parent with 2 kids, take them to school, drop them off, take the parent back home. And I normally wouldn't take it because I didn't like doing school run things, because you get annoying little children in the back of my car kicking the back of my seat and generally wrecking the car. Anyway, I took it, arrived at this address, this lady gets in the front seat and her 2 kids get in the back, and we take them back. I take them to school, and then I'm driving her back, and she starts this conversation. She says, it's really hard to get reliable taxi drivers. And she said, Uber's just horrible. You can't get one. And I just wish I had a reliable taxi driver that could take my kids to school every morning. And at this point, we'd stopped and pulled up. And she put her hand on my knee, at which point I kind of looked over like that, because touching is, I can't touch customers anyway. They can touch me apparently, but I can't touch them. So she put her hand on my knee. So obviously I kind of looked at her, and she looked straight at me and she said, it doesn't have to be a financial transaction, and she winked like that. And first of all, the stuff going through my head, I should say first of all that I didn't find her remotely attractive, so the decision had already been kind of made. But there was just this stuff going through my head about, can you lose your license? Should you even be doing this? And then I'm like, I think I said something like, okay, I'll bear it in mind. Have a good morning. Goodbye. And she kind of left. But yeah.
My gosh.
There's been other instances as well, but
what a hazing process.
Yeah. Yeah, you do hear some stories about that sort of thing with taxi drivers, and
I suppose at least it lets you know you still got it, right?
I think so.
Oh my God!
Got a mom hitting on you.
Getting a bit wrinkly about the edges, but yeah, I think I still got
whatever.
That's amazing.
Hey, your book writing process, do you do it for, I guess, financial stability? I've heard that authors don't really make that much. Or do you do it as like a decompression process for your post-hike season? What's your rationale for writing books?
The first one, the journey in between the one and the Camino, I wanted to write purely because I'd always wanted to write a book. It was kind of on the bucket list, one of those things on the bucket list. I never wrote one to that point because I never had anything that I thought I could write a book about. So I wasn't passionate enough for anything I was really doing that I think I could get away with it, because you have to be passionate about a subject to write a book about it. It shows. And I got back from the Camino with a diary full of notes. Not notes, like a full-on diary. I used to write kind of like a page of A4 every day on what happened, and I didn't do it because I wanted to write a book. I just thought, diarise it. It's one of those things you can look back on. And I got back home and I was looking at this and I thought, you could write a book on that. You could actually write a book on it. And the process, or how I did it, was I just start. I think someone said to me, just start. Put all your fears of whether you can write a book and whether it'll even be successful to one side, and just start. And I did. So it was, first and foremost, it was a bucket list thing. And there was something in the back of my head that said, if it actually sells a few copies, then even better. So the financial stability was kind of like maybe, or the possible of financial stability was like about 5% of it. I didn't really think it would sell. So I guess it was, the reason for writing the first one was purely just to tick something off on the bucket list. And when it did started selling, and where it led me from there was, I even look back now and I'm gobsmacked that A, I could even write it, but B, that anyone would even buy it, and C, that for 5, 6, 7 years, it supported me quite well.
Wow.
But for anyone thinking of doing it, I just follow the advice that someone gave me, and just, don't think you can't do it. Just start. Just start writing, and if there's anything wrong with it, generally a decent editor will pick it up and tidy the whole thing up, and proofreaders will pick it up, and you'll get feedback from that.
Wow.
That's really good advice.
You're giving me hope.
So you have made money from these books, or like you have seen success with your writing to an extent.
Yeah, it was. Well, I wrote when I wrote The Journey Between, and this was back in 2010 when self-publishing wasn't really a thing. So I don't even know if Kindle was about, but if you said to somebody, you can self-publish, I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So I had a really helpful editor. We finished it. We had it to a stage where we figured it was finished, and she said, right, well, you need to write off to like at least 15 publishers. Send them the first chapter, which was the accepted method of doing things. And she said, look, you probably won't get it accepted. I think something like 99.9% of submissions to traditional publishers don't get accepted, and stories say that a lot of the manuscripts don't even get read.
Wow.
So we self-published it. She said, self-publish it on Amazon. I'm like, what does that mean? She said, you basically do it all yourself. You've written it, you've had it edited, get someone to design the cover, and just upload it to Amazon. And I did all of that. And I kind of left it. And a couple of weeks later, actually it's more than a couple of weeks, it's probably a couple of months, I kind of looked at the sales figure, and I'm like, there's people buying my book. And it wasn't a big amount of money by any stretch, but I kind of looked at it and I'm like, there's money coming into my account. This is great. And it kind of, over the next few years, it was, if anything, it maybe paid half the rent from where I was living. So it wasn't a shabby amount, but I mean, I couldn't have lived off it. Then I did the Appalachian Trail, and then I wrote a book on that. And then, strangely enough, it was Carrot Quinn. I was chatting to Carrot Quinn online. And she gave me advice which I'm forever, ever thankful, because she was doing really well. And she basically said, go and market it. You've written a book, it's on there, but you're not marketing it. It's like, if Ford released a new car and they didn't tell anybody,
no one would know.
You might happen across it in the showroom as you drive past, but they don't. They advertise the hell out of it. It's on TV, it's on billboards, They email everyone. And she said, just look into that. So I stumbled across a course by a guy called Mark Dawson, who's a UK author. He writes thrillers. He was doing incredibly well. And he wrote a course on basically how to do all of this. So advertising, marketing, getting your keywords right on Amazon, advertising on Amazon, advertising on Facebook. And I did all of this. And I remember when I was in hospital, because I just had an operation on my elbow, and I got an email from Karen. She said, your books are doing so much better, ! And they were. And that was the point where everything kind of took off, because I'd put all of this hard work in. And I guess from about 2015 up to about 2020, that's how I earned my living. And by a lot of people's standards, it was probably a drop in the ocean. But to me, I just thought, I've never earned this amount of money in my life. And it wasn't a huge amount of money, but to me, it was a lot of money. I mean, it paid the rent, it paid my fuel bill, everything I needed to do, and then some. And it was fantastic. It was like you're doing something you really love doing. And then you're writing a book out of it, and it looks like, you're a decent author because people are buying your book, and they're giving you money for the privilege. So I was pleased, really pleased.
Wow, that's really cool.
Way to romanticize the idea. Appreciate that.
You're a good writer too, though.
You really are.
You painted a really good picture.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Have you two considered writing a book, or is it just not something you?
Yeah, I've actually considered. I did a lot of blogging for the track.
He's a really good writer.
On the PCT, and I stopped like midways through writing it, and that's just because we got so busy with life.
Our PCT story is pretty wild. Like, we didn't break our footpath the whole way, and we almost didn't make it to the end. They shut the trail down 2 hours after we hit the border. And we had to hike back in like 6 fires. It was insanity. And so our story was very much like we didn't know if we were going to make it or not because of the fires. And it was really scary. But we have a crazy story through the trail, I feel like, and just had crazy favor on that trail.
Yeah.
So we do have a story there for sure. And that's why I guess we're telling it on the podcast, but a book would be really cool.
Yeah, if only I had a job where I had to camp and I had nothing to do at night except for write, you know?
I know. I won't be bothering you. Lobo won't be bothering you. You can do what you want.
Yeah. Maybe it'll get done this summer. Who knows?
Yeah.
Sometimes, as I said, sometimes it's one of those things that A, you don't think you can do, writing a book, and then B, it's kind of scary because you think it might get canned, which is another fear. You know, people read it and say that this is just rubbish. But I think, I mean, if you've been writing stuff, you know, for the podcast and you think you've got a great story, and as I said earlier, you're passionate about it, and indeed, even if you want to write a book, it's worth at least giving it a shot. What's the saying? If you, there's a saying that's in my head and I've completely forgotten it. You can trial and fail. No, trying and failing is better than never trying at all, or something like that.
Never trying at all, or something. Yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
No, maybe I'll pursue it this summer. As long as we can keep finding people to edit our podcast episodes.
I'll look out for your book on Amazon soon then.
I appreciate you.
What, it would be like a year or two, right?
Yeah,
Based off your...
I'll even do my cover art.
Yeah, I'll give it a couple of years. Yeah.
No, thanks.
I wanted to ask, I really want to talk about the haunting on trail.
Oh, yeah. You should do it.
So can you recap that story in your words? Like, we read it in the book, and I thought it was wild because we had read this other couple's book that did the PCT, and they talked about a haunting, and they talked about a little girl, and she was going around their tent, and she whispered to the woman in the tent, "Come play with me." And then they heard a woman scream, "Get out." And they packed up at like 3:00 in the morning and they left. And they said it was, I think, in NorCal. And you said it too. And we stopped the audiobook and I was like, holy shit. Like, there is a haunting on this trail and I do not want us camping there. So we were trying to figure it out. So can you tell us your experience?
Oh, you didn't tell me something. When you mentioned someone else had an experience, but you didn't say about. Oh, do they? Presumably, you could find out where that is. Could you roughly? I mean, I don't from the top of my head. I can't remember where it was, but I can certainly. I
think in your book it was NorCal area. I think in the book timeline.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in NorCal as well. Oh my God, how freaky would that be if it's the same place?
Well, because you guys described it as the same place.
Well, we could definitely find it in the other book because she lists off mile markers and like mileages.
Detail. Yeah, and it was, and you guys described the same place in the book, and it was like this strange. Like, I think even in your book you said something about how you just needed to camp for the night, but it was this weird spot that with like, I don't remember, like an abandoned something. Do you remember?
Oh, you've seriously freaked me out now. I've got to. We need to postscript. We need to find out from where it is from the other the other people. That's okay. So, so we've established. I don't know where it is, but we can find out. So it wasn't. I think it was like early evening, maybe 6-7 p.m. I was walking up this real stinker of a hill. It was a long way up. It was on a ridge. And I was kind of getting annoyed because I wanted to stop and there wasn't anywhere flat, and eventually came across this flat area. And I pitched a tent, and this guy came past on a quad bike, and he didn't stop, but he just kind of looked over and kind of waved and acknowledged me, and I did the same. I did all the normal stuff you do when you break camp. I had something to eat, and there was a bear involved as well. And I remember brushing my teeth a good 100 feet away from the tent because of the toothpaste and the smell. I think I hung my bag. I can't remember. But I'm settling down to sleep, and at this point it's dark, and I hear a bear, and I hear it kind of where I'd cleaned my teeth. So I'm thinking it's attracted by the toothpaste. So I did the usual thing. I shout out, "Hey bear, get out of here!" And I hear it just run off into the undergrowth. And so I'm kind of awake at this point. And you kind of listen. You tend to listen to see if it comes back, which it did. It came back again, so I yelled at it again, and then it ran off. And then it came back again. So I'm wide awake. The last thing I want to do is fall asleep with a bear round camp. And that's the fact that I was wide awake is hugely important when I tell the story, because a lot of people say, "Fozzie, you're dreaming," and I'm like, no, I was definitely, no way was I dreaming. I was bolt awake. So the bear came back again, at which point I blew my emergency whistle, figuring that might scare it more, and it ran off again. So I'm lying down in my tent listening for this bear to come back, and it is as quiet could be, which is also an important fact which I'll come on to. I'm lying there, and then all I hear is not this woman shouting, but certainly in a very raised voice. He just says, "What are you doing here?" Now I sit bolt upright in the tent. We can use mild profanities on this, can't we? You said.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, you can cut it.
So I was shitting myself basically. I'm thinking it's whatever time in the morning. I'm figuring it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the middle of the woods, and it's your worst nightmare. There's someone outside the tent, and all I could say was, I kind of mumbled. I'm like, well, what do you mean? What am I doing here? What the hell are you doing here? And it was just silence. There's nothing there. And I must have sat there for a minute or so, and eventually I unzipped the tent and I got out, and there's nobody there. And the other thing that struck me, which was even more scary, I said it was quiet. Around the outside of the tent on the ground was dried leaves and twigs, which, any person will tell you if you walk on, you can't do silently. You can't walk silently on crisp, dried leaves. And the only thing I heard was this woman say, "What are you doing here?" And that was it. I think I was out of that place at first light. As I was wrapping up camp, the guy came back up the hill on the quad bike. At this point, it must have been 6 o'clock or maybe something like that. And he stopped and he came over to me. And he just kind of introduced himself and like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm good." And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm hiking the PCT. He said, "Okay." And I'm like, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm working down at a building site in the valley, and I have to take the quad bike up the top of the hill to make phone calls because I can't get reception down there." And then he said, "You look a bit," I think shaken was the word he used. And I'm like, do I tell this guy what happened, or is he just going to think I'm losing it? So I told him, and he just kind of looked at me completely unplussed, unsurprised. And he just looked at me. He said, "Yeah," he said, "I'm not surprised." And I'm like, "Why do you say that?" He said, "It's not the first time I've heard it." He said, "We don't really know, but there's a lot of old homesteads, abandoned homesteads down in the valley, people that have, when everybody went out west to make a new life for themselves, and it didn't work out or whatever. But he said, mate, he says, it's ghosts. He said, believe it or believe it not. He said, I believe in it." And he said, "It's not the first time I've heard someone tell me some sort of story from around here." So,
wow,
there you go.
That gives me chills.
Yeah, I definitely was like very nervous around that area of NorCal. I don't know where it was, but I know there was a abandoned cabin that we camped at one night.
Which is where Dickhead Steve hangs out. The deer.
I don't know if you've heard of Dickhead Steve, but
great name though.
Yeah, it's a deer that will loot and plunder hikers' gear.
Stuff, yeah, just like eat your stuff.
Yeah.
But there around that area, it felt old. like there was an energy there of
Yeah.
like creepiness, or just there was something there. And there were a lot of deer around that area that we experienced. But I wondered if that was around that area, because I was like, there's something about this. And where was that area? It was before Etna. It was in between, for us, it was in between Dunsmuir and Etna. That stretch is where I got this weird vibe and was like, something feels weird here.
We should try and find out where it was.
Yeah.
We really should. Yeah.
It's funny. If you watch my YouTube watch list, it's probably the most bizarre and eclectic group of topics that you could possibly imagine. But one of them is, I watch a few people that go around the States and they visit these old abandoned towns and they film them. So they're still standing, but they've been completely abandoned like 150 years ago. And you get these old homesteads in the middle of nowhere and they go around filming them. And one of the common things you hear is like, I don't like this place, there's something about it, or this building doesn't feel right. And I mean, I wouldn't sleep in, sometimes you're tempted by a shelter, like it's raining and you've got your tent and you see an old abandoned hut and you think that'll be easy, it'll be dry, and a little bit warm, and you can dry out, and you're like, not doing it. And there's a story about the AT. You remember Pockets, Josh Myers, who I hiked a lot of the PCT with, the photographer guy. He was telling me about the AT, and he said he had a water source listed, and it said something like by an abandoned homestead, and he found the side trail and he went down, and he stopped before I think it was a well or something, and he said he was walking down and he's like, this is not good. It just like this overwhelming thing about, you really should not be going down here. It's a bad energy. And he said he got his water and he got the hell out. But the weird thing and the real kicker is, which I don't know if is wholly true, because when I walked the AT, I couldn't find it on this mile marker, but he said the mile marker of the side trail was 666.
No.
Listen.
And I tried to find it and I couldn't, but I mean, he's a relatively level-headed guy. The last person you think would be telling ghost stories, and he's like, there was something about that place I'm not doing again.
No, we're from the deep south of like Alabama, Georgia, Appalachia. I grew up in the mountains of Lookout Mountain, Appalachia. And there is some shit out there. Like, it is so haunted in certain areas, and I know there's a lot of pain in those areas. And you think about the Native Americans and what they did to them in the East Coast. Like, there's a lot of energy and vibes that are there that are very deep. They run very deep. And so, I don't mess with.
I don't know if a lot of your listeners can even relate to. I mean, 30 years ago, if you told these sort of stories, people look at you like, that Fozzie bloke's losing it. He's got some right weird old stories. But now it's kind of like you feel you can talk about it. But I know I didn't really, apart from that one incident with Josh, I don't remember really sensing anything on the Appalachian Trail. But it's true, you can. I want to use the word evil, because that's, if you do sense those things, that's the only way you can describe it. It's like, this is not a nice place and I shouldn't be spending any time here and I need to get out of here as quickly as possible. And even you say that to some people and they're like, no, that's crazy. You can't feel that sort of stuff. But you do.
I've felt that since I was a kid. I can feel like it's a weird, cold terror that comes over me where I feel like I can't move and I can't talk. And it's this feeling of dread and anger, almost, of like this energy that something wants to hurt me. And it's like, whenever I sense that, I leave. I'm like, I don't deal with this shit well. Like, I cannot watch a scary movie or a haunting at all, because I just get very sensitive to that stuff. Or I can also feel, this sounds crazy, we've never really talked about this on the podcast, ghosts.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's great. We're going down the rabbit hole. But in Georgetown, one of our old units, in a town here in Colorado, Georgetown. It's
a lot of mining history in Colorado.
This is an old town. Like this is over 100 years old town. It was one of the mining establishment towns, and there's so many ghosts in this town. Like people come, like ghost hunters come to this town to do ghost stories. And we lived we lived on like the cute little downtown Main Street above one of the stores in an apartment. And I knew there was a ghost in there, but it wasn't a mean ghost. It wasn't a dread ghost. Like I was like, no, there's definitely a presence here that's just watching us. And I don't, it's just curious. And we found out the woman that we rented from, her mom passed away in that apartment. That was her apartment. That was her house. I was like, yeah.
It sounds like you're super sensitive to stuff like that. I think a lot of people, a lot of people just don't believe it. But I think if you do believe in it, you've got certain sensitivities, and some people are more sensitive than others. I mean, I've had other situations where I swear there's something, for want of a better expression, a spirit or a ghost or something. And I've had bad ones, and I've had good ones where I'm kind of like mildly like alarmed, but I'm like, no, this one's all right. It's it's not going to do me any harm. There's no issues with it. And yeah, mate, ghost stories, that's a whole podcast on its own. I could go on for hours. I love all that stuff.
Look, on the T&B, there was this one spot. We did it counterclockwise. There's this one spot that we camped at just before we got to the town of Champagne in Switzerland. And you could tell that a lot of people hang out there. A lot of people camp there. And there is basically this large rock structure. And you could tell it was an old mine because there's an old like doorway that has since been barred off and you can't access it. And we camped there on the night before Halloween. So the night before All Hallows Eve. And
is that when we saw the ibex that night, didn't we?
No, different night.
Oh.
But we almost didn't camp here because you were getting weird vibes about it.
Oh, the monolith. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was like an old monolith looking thing.
Oh my gosh. It felt like a Halloween murder setup. Like I was like, I feel like we're gonna get murdered in our sleep here. And it felt weird. Something about that spot. And we were camping right beside the mine.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice camp spot. And it was kind of nestled in the trees. You're right. I got such weird vibes there, and I was like, I swear to God, this place is haunted. Like they're inside the mine.
Yeah.
And they're just gonna come out.
and we got our headlamps, and we shone those inside of the barred off mine entrance, and we never hit a wall. It was just complete darkness.
It was
like as far as the headlamp would shine.
Yeah. If you do the T&B, you can't miss it. It's huge.
Yeah.
I don't.
That happened.
That's the sort of place you just don't want to. You just wouldn't go down, would you? You wouldn't. You wouldn't go in. There's apparently there's I was watching something again on YouTube months ago, and there's a mine up north in the UK somewhere. Like you can see it. There's a tunnel that goes back, and the Romans built it. So this thing's like 2,000 years old, and it's still there.
Whoa.
And I think a mate of mine said, "Do you want to go up and have a look?" And I'm like, "Nope, you go. I'm fine. You go. Knock yourself out. I ain't going."
Nope.
Yeah. On this topic, last thing I'll say, Maria actually had an ancestor killed on the Appalachian Trail.
Oh yeah. He was murdered. In the 70s. Actually, my Nana. So she made me vow when I was a kid that I would never thru hike by myself. I had to when I got married, and I said okay. And I didn't know the why. And it was her first cousin. So it was my, second cousin or something, third cousin. But yeah, come to find out, my cousin, it was a serial killer in the 70s who killed a few people on the AT. And we want to do a story on it, actually, on the podcast, like a crime story. But he was murdered like while he was asleep. I think. I don't know the full story. I just know that he had finished up in the Navy, I think, and he was like, he had his GI Bill and he was gonna go, and he had dreamt of thru hiking the AT, and yeah, he was murdered. I don't even know where. This is what I need to find out, is like all the information, because I don't know.
This wasn't the one at Is it the Wapiti shelter?
It might have been. See, I don't know. I know it was in the 70s, and that's all I know. Or was it the 90s? Now, see, I need to get more information.
I think it was. I mean, I don't know if it's the same person or not. I'm getting the impression it wasn't the 70s, but I know there was a couple that stayed at the Wapiti shelter on the AT. And they were murdered. They found the guy that did it, but I didn't know this, and I slept in the Wapiti shelter on my own. And when I read about this later, when I got home, I'm like, oh my God, I mean, okay, nothing's going to happen, but it's, they don't exactly advertise that stuff. Wapiti shelter, several murders here. You're not going to like, oh, well, let's go and stay there tonight. It just doesn't happen, does it? So I didn't know. But, oh, wow. So,
yeah.
Crikey. Did you find that out when you're doing your ancestry thing? Or?
No, I found out because... how did I find out? I feel like I talked to my Nana before she passed or something, and I was like, I don't understand why you don't want me to hike. Like, I love being outside. And then she told me, I think, about her cousin and how he had, been murdered on the AT, and she was like, I don't ever want you to do it. And I was like, well, I understand. And she's like, that's why I want you to have a husband, because at least you'll be protected. Yeah. I don't know more than that. My aunt gave me his name a few months ago because I mentioned it in the podcast, I think, or another podcast. But now I need to go back and look so I can find more research, because it would be a fascinating episode, I think, to talk about. Because it was a serial killer who killed a few people on the trail that year, and my cousin was one of them.
It's like our own National Parks After Dark episode.
Yeah.
I think it might be the Wapiti one, because I know the guy that did it, he killed a few people and they jailed him for something like a long, 10, 15, 20 years, and he got out and then he did it again. So it might have been
him.
It might have been. Yeah.
I need to look that up now.
We should also say at this point to everybody listening that your chances of getting murdered or killed on a thru hike are just so remote, it's not even worth scaring yourself about it.
I was going to say, I was like, we're probably freaking people out, but
it's way safer to be in the woods than to walk a road.
It's totally safer to be out in the woods through hiking, than to even be driving in a car. Yeah.
And as far as rabbit holes go, and the whole ghost thing and being murdered was a whopper. I think we're all lost somewhere down a rabbit hole, aren't we? Do you think we can get back out? Or
I was going to say, well, should we wrap up on a better? We're almost 15 to 11, so I don't know.
Okay.
You want to do one last good question?
I'll do 6, and then we can start to wrap up. What about 6, 9, and then 10?
I think we need to just do 2 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've kind of touched a little bit on your highs and your lows on trail. I guess I'm wondering, do you have, you mentioned a little bit about the CDT. Do you have any future hikes planned? And if they happen to be in the U.S., do you have any reservations about, getting a visa to come and hike in the U.S. for X number of months, given recent changes?
Recent changes, interesting way of putting it there, Wes.
I'm trying to remain PC, politically correct here.
Okay, let's try and have this conversation without mentioning Donald, shall we?
No.
I've got no concrete plans to do any more through hikes. We've spoken about the CDT, and that's kind of a possibility, but I don't have any immediate plans to do it. Would the situation in the States put me off? No, not at all. I think the things that put me off when I first thought about going over there to do a hike, the PCT, for me was bears and rattlesnakes, because I was mortified of ever seeing either of them. And having experienced both of them, you learn pretty quickly that, if you behave in a certain way and you're careful, you're not really going to get in any trouble. So the point I'm saying is your fears when you go to do these things, I don't know if I guess they have put people off. Or maybe there's people that want to go out and do the PCT, but they can't do it because of bears, so they're never going to do it. And I came close. But I guess the moral of the story is that unless it's something really drastic, like, civil war or something, then don't go. But I mean, what's happening over there at the moment? You do hear stories about people being declined entry and visas and all of this sort of thing. Again, I did mine in 2010, so I had a visa for the US from the US Embassy in London. I got all of that sorted before I went. It didn't guarantee me entry. In fact, as usual, US immigration always seemed to give me a hard time. I think it's probably because I used to rock up in a pair of purple shorts and a yellow top and a rucksack on, which, if you looked at me, you'd be like, well, he's obviously bumming around the state for 4 months, probably working for some illegal company and earning cash, and he probably smokes marijuana and drinks too much, which wasn't far from the truth. But, but it wouldn't put me off now. I'm sure it's probably, well, I guess it might be harder to get into the States. I don't really know, but
we've had a few. Yeah, we've heard a few stories.
I don't know if you've
been a hit or miss.
Ever heard of a hiker named Professor Carl. He did the calendar year Triple Crown like 2 years ago. He and his partner's from Canada, they tried to get back into the States to do, I think, the Arizona Trail, and she was denied entry, even though she's a Canadian citizen. And
had all her documents and everything. And I don't know I don't know if something changed and she didn't have a visa, because Canada and the United States have such a great relationship up until now.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I don't know, I think I know if you go to Canada as a U.S. citizen, you don't need a visa to get in. You can just go with your passport. And so I think Canada, vice versa, they could just come with their passport and it was fine. But I don't know if now they need a visa to get in or if something changed. But she was denied entry just a couple months ago. We have had a few friends.
Were they both Canadian, or he was US and she was... Sorry, he was Canadian.
US.
He was US, so he got in anyway.
Yeah, but we've had a friend from Scotland, or from the UK, too, Cuppa and Mama Troll, and they got in, but Mama Troll had a harder time, I think, than Cuppa. Cuppa said he got grilled, but it wasn't like... I don't know. I think Mama Troll said that the person got really angry at him because he was going to be here for 6 months.
He's like in the CDT.
There's without dishing, immigration and customs officer, and I'm sure they do a fantastic job. But in my experience, there's some sort of weird mentality. I don't know what. I remember when when I went out to do the PCT initially, even though I had a visa, they grilled me big time. I was at the desk, and this guy was on the phone to his superior or whatever, talking about me. And I could hear his superior's voice on the phone, and his superior said something like, well, what is he doing? Why is he in the States? And having told the guy that I was out there to do the AT, this guy just said to his superior, oh, he's just walking around or something. And I looked at this guy, and I'm like, do you just not I didn't say this, but I wanted to say, do you not understand English, you complete moron? Because I've just told you I'm doing the Appalachian Trail. It's probably going to take me 4 months, and I have a B2 visa here. If you find something in my pack that shouldn't be there, fair enough, but everything's above board. And he eventually relented, and he slammed the phone down, and he just kind of like that and waved me off. And there seems to be some sort of mentality, and I'm sure it's not got any better in the last 6 months with what's going on with immigration and tightening it all up. But
yeah.
I
would also say, look this up, right?
Sorry,
what's the Appalachian? You think they look it up? What's the Appalachian Trail?
Even if I explained it to the guy, he'd just stare at me as if he still didn't know what I was talking about. I don't know, but that if I went back and did it now, and I don't know if this is good advice to people or not, but if I went back and did it now, there's certain steps I take. So number one, I would not arrive in the States dressed as a thru hiker. I would wear kind of like smart casual clothing, just look smart, but I'm not talking about a suit, but a shirt, a nice pair of jeans, a nice pair of shoes, maybe a jacket. Don't carry a rucksack. Try and squeeze it all into like an obscure black holder or something like that, so you can't see the rucksack, because rucksack's always a red flag. if you can get your visa sorted in the embassy of the country you live in before you go to the States, it's a much, much bigger deal. Doing it for a charity always helps because customs don't, you say to them, look, I'm doing this for charity. I'm not saying I'd use the charity card to, go and do a hike or get into US immigration, but it certainly helps. And if you wanted to do it for charity, that would grease the wheels. Be polite. Don't get angry. Get some referees, preferably people in the US, and show them the bank statement or show them your bank balance on your phone and prove to them that you've got money to get through. Obviously, if the balance in your bank account is $200, don't show them. But if you've got enough money to support yourself, then, use that as backup as well. And I did all of those things apart from rocking up at customs looking like a thru-hiker and with a rucksack. That's always a red flag, a rucksack.
Well, that's good advice.
It is, yeah. I think we do one more question as we wrap up.
Yeah.
I feel like you have so much advice and just a well of knowledge, Fozzie. What would you tell anyone listening to this podcast who wants to thru hike and has never done it? What advice would you give them?
The most important one, and I'll say this first, so in ascending order with not the worst advice last, but maybe the lesser advice last. So the first one, the most important thing is take, I don't know what you guys call them over there. We call them elastic bands. Is that what you call them? Elastic bands? So they can't you
rubber bands?
Hang on, I've got one. Hang on.
But it's a rubber band. Yeah, rubber band.
Rubber band. Yeah.
Rubber bands. I knew it was different over in the States. This is a very important piece of advice. Take elastic bands.
Wait, why?
They've just got so many uses. I took them initially just to, like, let's say you take a packet of rice from the supermarket and you take it on trail and you open it and you cook your rice, and then the following morning or the following evening you go to get your rice out and it's turned upside down in your pack and it's not in a Ziploc, and you've got a rucksack full of loose rice. So I used to use rubber bands to seal food packages. And then I had several instances where I'm like, these things are great because they do so much. The other thing was I had a guy rope on my tent go. So, the little bit of elastic on the corner of your tent where you peg it out. So that was a good one. It's also elasticated so you can tension your staking out of your tent. Some guy said you can go hands-free on your phone with an elastic band because you wrap the elastic band around your head and then you tuck the phone in so you can go hands-free. Like that.
That feels like a stretch, but
always take rubber bands. I had to write the rest down. And what was the other one? On a more serious note, is probably to get fit before you go. I know there's a sage old bit of advice that you get fit when you're doing the trail, and you do. I mean, you get to the other end of these thru hikes, and you're probably as fit as you're ever going to be in your life. But you do meet people that have, a week before decided, I'm not going to go and do the Appalachian Trail because it looks like a really good idea, and they go down the hiking and gear shop and they get their boots in their rucksack and whatever, and 2 weeks later into the AT they've gone home because they're not fit, they've got blisters, their pack's rubbing and all that sort of thing. So I always kind of recommend at least 3 months before you go on a trail, even if you can only start with walking a mile, go out and walk that mile, and then the next week do 1.5 miles, try and do it every day, and then, maybe 3 weeks in go and do that 2 mile, up to 2 miles, to do it twice a day. And when you get up to 15 miles, put a rucksack on and put a little bit of weight in it. So your body's, all these points around your body is getting used to where your rucksack weighs. So in 3 months' time, when you have got it, those sore spots have toughened up and they're used to that rucksack. Your feet get used to your trail shoes or your boots that are wearing. So when you hit the trail running, not only are you fit, but all the gear you've bought, you kind of know it's worked and you're used to it, and more important, the gear is used to you. So, you're kind of your trail conditioning before you get out there. That would be my second bit of advice. What else did I write down? Go as light as you can. Again, an old bit of advice. A lot of people say go as light as you're comfortable with, but it is a given that the lighter you go, the easier your hike is going to be. You can walk longer every day. You get fatigued less.
Take less so you can do more.
Take
Shout
less
out
so
to
you can
Glenn
do
Van
more, is a good way of putting it. Yeah, you're less prone to injury, and you just. I guess unless you've taken a really heavy pack, and then you've hiked with a light pack, you kind of know. And a lot of people will start with a really heavy pack, and that's all they ever become used to, and they don't understand why they can only walk 12 miles a day and that sort of thing. So go as light as you can, but as light as you're comfortable with. And the last one, which, contrary to my elastic bands being the most important bit of advice, I think the last one's probably, in my mind, the most important one, and that's don't rush it. And I did. There is some hikes where I did rush it. You get carried away with making miles and finishing in a certain time, or the favourite one is trying to catch up with that person that you really liked and you don't know where you are, and so you hike quicker to catch them up, and before you know it, you've actually passed them because they were taking a pee in the bushes, and you're now 200 miles ahead of them. So it's a completely worthless thing to do anyway. But just kind of take stock of it when you're out there. You go out there for a reason. You go out there to escape. You go out there to be free. You go out there and to enjoy the scenery. So to get there and then rush it just makes absolutely no sense at all. But people do it. I've done it. But just, just slow down a little bit. Pockets always used to say, once in a while, just stop and turn around and have a look at what's behind you, because that's the one thing you never really see.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
That's good.
Advice. Stop and look around once in a while. Get the view going back the other way.
I love that.
Pockets who became rockets.
You should maybe get Rockets on the podcast. That would be an absolute riot. Seriously, that guy... I mean, sometimes an absolute nightmare, but I think probably the most adorable bloke I've ever met in my life. He's an absolute diamond. You should maybe talk to him as well. He's brilliant.
Okay.
Look, if you want to establish a connect, happy
I can
to.
do that.
For sure.
Yeah, please.
I can do that, yeah.
Man.
That's lovely. So, wow, I feel like this episode has given me a lot of inspiration.
I know. Fozzie, I'm just...
Me too.
Thank you. This has been so wonderful, and I hope we get to meet you in person and hang out.
That would be lovely.
If I come over to the States, then I'll never say never. And if I am in your neck of the woods, then I'll be sure to look you up. I'll buy you breakfast.
Oh, lovely. we live right now. We'll probably not be here by the time you do your hike, but we live in Breckenridge, which is very close to the CDT.
Yeah. It's 2 miles from the trail.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. It's just one of our day hikes.
Yeah, because it happens to be dry right now and not covered in snow.
Yeah.
So you're offering transportation to and from the trail as well, then?
Only for people we know. We aren't trail angels. We won't advertise ourselves as trail angels.
So unadvertised trail magic. Then I'll keep it quiet. I won't say anything.
Keep it on the low.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great episode. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's amazing.
You're welcome again. Thanks for the invite. That was a good one. I've done a few, but I don't think any of them have gone on this long. I hope it doesn't turn into a something or it's too long. But
no.
Yeah, I often find that the longer ones are the ones you have the most fun on. I've had a good giggle. It was nice to talk to you about. It's a lot of fun. Thanks.
Well, if anyone complains about the episode length, they need to work on their attention span a little bit.
I agree.
That's what they need.
Should listen to it while they're hiking, because that's what you want is a longer podcast when you're hiking.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't think about that. That's good.
Well, okay, everyone, thanks for listening to this incredible episode with Fozzie. If you have any comments, thoughts, any questions even for Fozzie and his many trails, please just email us at yetiwalksintobasecamp@gmail.com. for that, and we can get some answers for you. And thank you to our editors, Charlotte and AJ. We really appreciate you guys and everything you do for us. Thank you to The Fire Once Lost for the intro and outro music. We always love it. It's called the Appalachian Trail, which feels very fitting.
It does.
To this episode.
So, Fozzie, if the three of us are ever out hiking the Pacific Crest Trail and we're in NorCal one day and we're up this really bugger of a climb and we get to a nice flat spot and if we set up our tent and there's a bear that keeps harassing us, but the bear finally goes away and we're finally trying to settle down for the night, and we hear a voice ring out from the woods in the middle of the night, the dead silence. You know what that voice would say, right?
I do, yeah.
It would say, Happy Trail.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
Happy Trail.
Happy trails.
Happy trails.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, everyone. But we wanted to squeak in one more thing for you before the end of the episode. Here is our promo for the Fire Once Lost's new song. It is an acoustic murder waltz. The name of it is Young When I Met You. Just came out on June 11th, and I just wanted to read you a little bit about what this song covers, and I think it's super appropriate given the murder stories that we were just talking about in the interview with Keith here. It feels like a really full circle way to end this episode. So, Young When I Met You, it's kind of a folky, story-driven murder ballad waltz with progressive harmonies and traditional instrumentation. The lyrics tell a story about a man who takes his revenge on an unfaithful spouse and her lover. With a beautiful and haunting melody backed by mandolin, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, the dobro, which I've never even heard of, upright bass, and drums, The Fire Once Lost prioritizes authentic music, and this is all hand-done music. There's no beats, no AIs, no samples, so it's the real deal. So I just listened to it myself, and I think it's a great ending to our episode and our interview with Keith Foskett. So hope you enjoy.
Young when I met you, but soon I'll forget you, 'cause nobody knows where you are. How can the broken become the unspoken? A wound that will heal with no scar. When you draw your dying breath, my heart will fill with emptiness. Young when you met me, but soon you'll regret me, 'cause nobody knows where you are. Your love was glowing and it started showing, but baby, it wasn't for me. 3 houses over, the last leaf in your clover. Why couldn't you leave him be? Told me I was all for you, that you could never make me blue. Sleeping around, now you'll sleep in the ground, 'cause baby, I'm blue as can be. There was a time when I would call you mine, but I have been thinking it through. Cheating and faking, my heart said you were breaking, and I'm all done drinking about you. Written on a dollar bill, the number that could make me kill. Coming the dawn, baby, you will be gone, and he will be Johnny.